So, why is it that narcissists struggle so badly with taking accountability? Why is it they always feel like they can never be wrong? Why they have to point out what you did in a situation, even though 99% of the situation is theirs? Well, most of the internet will like to tell you that it's because they're evil, it's because this is just part of the tools within their toolbox to blame shift and emotionally hijack. And while they do those things, it's not on purpose. I'm a recovering narcissist myself, and I've gotten to the point where most of the time I do not make this mistake, but every so often I still do. And unless your narcissist also has antisocial personality, essentially psychopathy, uh, then they're not doing it on purpose. I mean, the whole part of the diagnosis of a narcissist is that they are doing this as a coping mechanism, that they are delusional and not self-aware of what they're actually doing. So in this video, we're going to get down to the real reason that narcissists don't want to be wrong, why they struggle with accountability, why they blame shift, why they emotionally hijack your problems. And if you're the loved one of a narcissist, we're going to talk about how you can move through these moments easier and help your narcissist take accountability. If you're a narcissist yourself, I'll talk you through how I've been able to move through this and have a much more peaceful relationship. I'm not perfect, but I do feel that there's just been a massive shift for me. So buckle up. I think this video is going to be helpful. So first, let's just get it out there. This is one of the worst things about being with a narcissist. It's also one of the hardest things about being a narcissist. And it creates so much conflict and so much drama, and it just sucks. Let's just get that out there. On the side of the narcissist, it's actually quite the spooky feeling, like when you wake up to the fact that you are actually wrong. And it's really, really hard to admit. We had an argument just recently, me and Kira, where it was just a really hard day for me. I'd actually sent apology letters to my ex and a bunch of other people in my life, and I was just feeling like a shitty piece of meat here on the planet. And I think that part of me just didn't want to be wrong again. It was like the end of the day, and she brought something up, and I feel like, man, the last, like, I don't know, 20 times or something, I've just like past these sorts of conflicts with like flying colors, but this was like not my day. But it was a great learning perspective, and so I guess that's why we're here. And we got to like, I just didn't want to let go of this like one piece of the issue, and I held on to it, and she got more dysregulated and frustrated, and I just like struggled to let it go. And we eventually had to like get ChatGPT out to like break the tie, and it sided with her, and I was like, shit, I did it to myself again. I tricked myself. I did that thing, didn't I? And I just truly thought I was right, but I can see that I kind of held on to it for other reasons. So let's get into the real reason that narcissists do this. So at the core of a narcissist, the whole reason they have narcissism is because they are trying to cope with the deep-seated feeling of being unlovable, of not being enough. And this feeling is really, really massive. It usually starts in childhood from a parent who is neglectful or abusive and makes them feel like they themselves, that their true self or parts of themselves are unlovable or unwanted. And I can tell you from personal experience that facing that unlovability is so intense. I've never experienced anything more intense than that. When I get stuck in that emotion, I get suicidal thoughts. And this is common among all people with NPD. And so our psyches as young children tried as hard as possible to never have to get close to that feeling again. It was quite dangerous to our survival. So we created narcissism. We created this false version of ourselves that we could prop up. We created this desire to be grandiose and better than everyone, and just kind of have a delusion that those things don't apply to me, that I'm perfect, I'm amazing, and that's how we coped with our stuff. And it's gross, but it's true. And I think when we can back up and see that if someone is approaching an issue, and not every issue, a lot of times the issues that have to do with shame or you get close to that feeling of unlovability. But when an issue comes up, a narcissist really struggles being wrong, struggles facing their mistake, because right behind that mistake, right behind that being wrong, is that deep, dark wound of feeling unlovable at their core, useless, meaningless. And so we try our hardest to stay away from that. And we might gaslight, we might get angry. I mean, this is at the core of narcissism. But at the end of the day, a lot of times we don't want to take accountability. So if you are the loved one of a narcissist, the first thing you can do is recognize that you're arguing with a child. And if you understand that, and again, this isn't your job. I never believe that it's the job of the loved one of a narcissist to like do anything that I'm going to talk about. You are watching my content because you want to show up. And maybe you're married, maybe you have children, maybe you really love the shit out of this person and you want to try and make it work. And like, kudos to you for taking the hard path. But if you at any point get to the part where you're like, I have no more energy to give here, it is totally fine for you to remove yourself from a relationship. I am a huge advocate of that. And I hope that me giving tips to people who want to try is not in any way making others feel that they can't or need to stick around to deal with everything with their narcissist. Because some people, honestly, you can't help. And the best thing you can do for them is to step away. All right. So let's get back to it. If you see that if you can look at them through this lens of I'm dealing with the child, it will make sense all the other pieces, and you will show up with an energy of like, oh man, I don't know if you've ever like tried to point out to a child like they've got chocolate over their lips and they're like, I didn't eat the cookie. You like can't help but kind of like laugh at how silly it is. You're like, yeah, you did. Like, no, I didn't. And like there's this fear there, and the problem is like you're fighting this like subconscious monster who's kind of like running the show, pulling all the gears for them. And it's hard because they don't look like a child. You don't see the mustache around them. But if you can see them through that lens, I think that you might have a little bit more empathy, and you can just like not get in the mud of it, not take it too serious. And this is really hard to do if a narcissist has made this same mistake of not taking accountability over and over and over again. It's infuriating to have that happen. So I understand that, but if you can try your hardest to be like, wow, I'm just dealing with the child here. Wow, they are such a narcissist. You can laugh about it a little bit. The next thing you can do is try to model accountability in general. If don't give them a reason to say that they shouldn't take accountability. If you can model accountability in your relationship as things comes up, they will at some point see like, wow, I should show up like they do. I really respect that about my Kira, is that she always is modeling love. She's modeling everything that I need to be doing better, but especially taking accountability is something that she does. The next part is to set the stage before you have this conversation. This is a really amazing tool for dealing with narcissists, that you set the stage. Say, hey, honey, I need to tell you something. Are you in a position where you can listen to it? And that helps me a ton, because my narcissism can kind of just is who runs the automation, and it's my conscious brain that can jump in here and do this. And some of the ways Kira will do it is she'll be like, hey, I really want to tell you something. It's kind of bugging me. It's kind of hurting my feelings. She's very like vulnerable. It's talking about herself, hurts my feelings. And I kind of don't want to share it unless you're in a place to hear it. Can you tell me when you're ready to hear it? And that kind of puts it on me to go like, oh, cool. It's one of these conversations. I don't want the narcissism to take over. I'm going to try and show up. And even before I recognized it was narcissism, I thought it was just like, I don't want my anger or, whatever to take over. And so it's a really helpful tool to do, even if you're not dealing with a narcissist, but especially with narcissists. So set the stage and then share the information as if it's your truth. You don't need to say that this is how the world needs to be, is that you need to hug me in the mornings. That can go down, what is objective reality? What is objectively true? Leave that out. Make it subjectively, make it about you. What is your truth? Hey, honey, I know that not everyone in the world needs a hug at the end of the day, but I do. I truly need to reconnect with you. It recharges my batteries. It makes me feel better. So if you can show up with a little bit more vulnerability, and if you can share what your truth is without saying this is the way it should be, that won't get the narcissist's emotions flaring up quite as much when you're saying you are doing it wrong. I mean, this is what we're trying to get away from, is saying you hitting that shame, and helping them see that. The other thing you can do is have really tight boundaries around how you need that conversation to go, essentially around them needing to take accountability. One of the worst things that loved ones of narcissists do is they keep on enabling them. They at some point put their hands up and go like, fuck it. I do not want to keep fighting. We've been fighting for so long now. But all that does is breed resentment. And you are going to like swallow the pill that they should be swallowing, and it's going to make you sick down the road. So don't do it. And I know it's really hard to sign up for another hour or 2 hours of fighting by like holding to this thing of like, I need you to take accountability for this. But it's worth it. We teach people how to treat us, and if you're enabling the narcissist to get away with things, then that's on you, to be honest. And I understand that he's a horrible person and that they are monsters and really, really hard to be with. But this is where you take your accountability for what you can do in the relationship. And and if you can't do it, that's okay. If you say, look, I can't do 4-hour fights all the time. I'm done. I'm out. That's great. But by swallowing it and like swallowing that resentment, it just makes you sick. You'll get 5 years down the road, be so full of resentment, you'll hate them, and then you'll end up cheating on them, or you'll end up becoming a monster. So don't let them turn you into a monster by swallowing so much resentment. Okay? Yeah, that is, and just recognize my final thing is just recognize that it's going to get better over time if you can do all the other things that I've kind of mentioned in here. The first time you do all these things, it's incredibly painful, it's incredibly annoying, it's incredibly frustrating. And then over time, if you are communicating well and they are willing to try, these things can get better, right? So now I'd like to talk to the narcissist. Man, I understand how hard this is for you as well. Taking that accountability is just something we so automatically do not want to do. We just immediately want to push it out and see some sort of blame that they have. And when you catch your mind doing that, recognize that you're doing it because you're trying to avoid that deep, dark, gross feeling of feeling unlovable, of feeling not enough, of feeling shame. So recognize that shame is playing a big part in this. And as you work through your shame and you can be more vulnerable with your partner, this gets easier over time. Like I said, this happened to me kind of recently because I was already like full of shame and like full of feeling worthless, that I just like, I didn't have enough energy to show up the way that I should have. And that was totally on me. One thing to recognize is that mistakes are okay. And that was something I had to tell myself. And it's like, it feels so bad. It's like you actually have to get to that very depressive, despair-like state where you are just looking at this and like, I fucked up. I messed up. And don't let yourself say, I'm the worst or anything. These are actually the learning moments where you can hug yourself and be like, oof, I messed up, but that's okay. Move through this. And that's how that right there is self-love. Self-love isn't hugging yourself when things are going good, when you score 100% on something and you're kicking ass. That's not self-love. Self-love is when you mess up, you make a problem, you are a mess. And hugging yourself and loving yourself there, that's self-love. That's how you fix shame. And so, mistakes are okay. Let that be your mantra. Mistakes are okay. Mistakes are okay. And the more comfortable you get with that, the better you can do. I have a lot of videos around working with your shame and reducing shame. If you can do that work, you will have less. This won't be as much of an issue in general. It's almost like takes the whole volume down across the board. And if you can practice being vulnerable with your partner on little things, you can be more vulnerable in these moments. And that is your work. Like, you cannot get away from your narcissism if you're not willing to be more vulnerable and to accept the shameful parts of yourself, to say, wow, I'm just a human like everybody else. At some point, I told myself I had to be perfect. And what a crazy lie I told myself, you know? I'm trying to read my note here. Accountability is strength. Yeah, I think that the last thing I would say to do is to apologize. And this is an important part of the whole process. And lean into the pain that you're creating through this argument, because that will give you empathy so that next time you don't make this same mistake. Notice how often you block off your heart when you are in these arguments because you don't want to feel them. And every time you block off your heart, you're setting yourself up to go make that mistake again in the future. Narcissists need to learn to open their heart to all the pain that they create so that they don't make that pain again. And I think one of the most healing things for a narcissist is to stop and look in the mirror and see that they are the ones who are creating all their pain. That's what I had to do. It's like I was scared of my own reflection. I couldn't look at it. I couldn't look at the nasty hairs and the jagged teeth and all my monsterness. I couldn't actually look at it. But the moment I did, and that I integrated it and made it a part of myself, I could accept it. And I could be like, wow, this is just who I am. And that's okay. And that's our medicine, is looking at who we are and accepting our own mistakes and the pain that we've caused others. And as we can do that, we can accept more mistakes as they come down the line. And we can be amazing partners, empathetic partners, and truly experience all the other emotions that make life so worth it. Love, empathy, joy. These things are waiting on the other side of the emotions that we're running from: pain, shame, vulnerability. So I hope that this video has been helpful to anyone who is struggling to make their narcissist accountable, or to any narcissist who is struggling with accountability. I truly believe that healing is possible. I feel like I'm living a different life than I lived a year ago. And I wish you luck on this same journey. So if you have questions about more how to handle this, or anything else you'd like me to cover on the channel, drop it down there. I'd love to hear it. I hope this has been helpful to somebody out there, and have a good day. See ya.